So you're probably wondering, you're classified searching and you're looking and you see, why are some of these used Mercedes-Benz so cheap? Well, we were doing the same thing about 4.5 years ago until we decided to pull the trigger and buy this used 2018 Mercedes-Benz with relatively low mileage on it. It actually came with only about 25,000 miles, had extended warranty, and it absolutely looked glorious. We love the looks of this vehicle. It drove well and it checked all the boxes for us. But after about 5 years of ownership of this vehicle, we've come to a very strong conclusion as to why some of these vehicles are as cheap as they are on the used car market. I mean, we were also shopping like a lot of you, thinking there's some amazing deals out there, and there are. Mercedes-Benz does offer some of the best looking stylish vehicles, some of the best safety ratings, beautiful headlights, imposing grille, the 3-pointed star, and the reputation that comes with Mercedes, and all of the luxury amenities that you can find in these vehicles. So what happened? Why are these vehicles so cheap? Well, we're gonna break this down for you because we have owned these for a while, and we've owned actually multiple used Mercedes-Benz over the years, but it's very important to consider some of these factors if you've been thinking about buying yourself a used Mercedes-Benz. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
I want to break down the first reason why a lot of these Mercedes-Benz are cheap on the used car market. And it really boils down to after a person owns it for a while. And that's why on the used market, you find them so cheap. People trying to unload them. They're not impressed with the quality and the solidity of these vehicles anymore like they once were. You know, there was back in a time when you think, okay, Mercedes was built solid. It was built like a tank. And no longer is that the case. And I found that in multiple Mercedes-Benz. We had an older hatchback Mercedes. We also had an ML500, and now we currently own this vehicle here. It's a W205. Doesn't matter. I've driven almost every generation, almost every Mercedes-Benz, and largely by and part, they're more or less the same. Sure, you get into the E-Class, S-Class, and they feel more dressed up. They have more of the amenities, but the overall underlying build quality is very, very much very similar. Now, a lot of that is just the way they're put together. And after you own these for a while, you'll realize that they're somewhat fragile. You move stuff around, things don't feel very well bolted together. Some of the buttons are kind of nice, but you know, some of these details are nice. But you know, we've also seen where this speaker has popped out when we hit a set of train tracks. Shiny plastics that feel like they belong more in a Kia, an early generation Kia, than they do in a Mercedes-Benz. It just feels cheap. Of course, a lot of this plastic, a lot of this stuff here just feels like it's not that well put together. And this is pretty consistent with a lot of Mercedes-Benz. A lot of these parts just don't feel like they're all well put together. Sure, they're using a lot of good materials like this. You'll notice rubbers and a little focus detail right here makes you think that they're well put together. Well, you would think that there's no whistling and noise because they actually look at features like this. They make sure that they put all kinds of these rubbers in place. You don't get whistling noises from trim at high speeds. But the fact remains is parts like this, loose. We found this popped off and we had to take it to the dealer under warranty, and they had to snap this back together. That's poorly built together. This here as well, you know, to remove this cup, you actually have to do that. That's your emergency way in, and in case your key fob dies, you can get in here. A lot of these plastic parts feel like they're going to shatter in your hands, and generally the overall look is great from a distance, but when you get up and close, you'll notice the fit and finish isn't great. You can fit a small animal, a barnyard animal, through these gaps right here, and overall it's not built with the most precise features in our own personal opinion. There's a lot of give, there's a lot of squeaks, a lot of rattles, and we've noticed that both inside, outside. This retractable seat belt, I mean, look here, let's close this up. I mean, they use parts like this that clearly they're not going to be built with the longest life intentionally, in my own personal opinion. So it's when you own these for a while, the squeaks, the rattles, the clunking that you actually get from these. They're great when they're new. But after, you know, this vehicle only has 61,000 kilometers on this vehicle, and we've had a whole plethora of issues, which I've spoke about in other videos, and we can certainly share that at the end of the video. The bottom line is, overall, after you own these for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you become very much underwhelmed by the overall build quality, the fit and finish. And when you drive a Mercedes, you want to feel good about when you drive off that it's built well, that it's quiet and solid. And I've driven cars like that. When you drive a Mercedes-Benz, the expectation is to have something that's solid, built structurally sound, and parts aren't going to fall off. Like we've seen in this vehicle, you get squeaks and you get rattles. And realistically, even though it looks wonderful inside, there's this overall feel and ambiance of clips and snap together fittings, and all of the detail that structurally holds these parts together really isn't up to snuff, really isn't up to the expectation of longevity. And that's why a lot of these people get rid of these after warranty period's up. Warranty's gone, lease is gone, people often just forfeit these, let them go. They know that imminent repairs are coming, they know that the quality and solidity isn't quite what they expected, and they often let them go. Of course, hence when people are trying to send these to the market in a mad rush, what does that do? Competition, naturally, there's lots of them out there, lots to choose from. Prices push down because of the old supply and demand. These vehicles just don't hold their value all that well. Now, another reason a lot of these Mercedes-Benz are so cheap on the used car market comes down to a simple fact of reputation. And reputation, we see it all over. There's no secret, no hiding. Now, Consumers Reports ranks these very, very low in terms of overall reliability. Mercedes-Benz has been losing ground every single year because of reliability ratings. JD Power doesn't love them, and neither does RepairPal rate them specifically all that well either. And almost every single reliability reviewer ratings find that most Mercedes-Benz don't rank particularly well. Now, are there worse vehicles out there? Many would argue that you get into something like a Range Rover or Jaguar, possibly Maserati, and you're going to find vehicles that are less reliable. I'm not totally sure that's always the case, because what I've seen and everybody I've known and spoke to, vehicles like Alfa Romeo often do just as well or better than a lot of these modern day Mercedes-Benz vehicles. So the ratings are very low. And it doesn't help with crybabies like myself that own these vehicles for a while, decide to take the punishment and then move on. And a lot of you have reached out in my previous videos and they say, well, why did you buy this? You should know better. Absolutely. And of course, myself as a reviewer, I like to own these vehicles and test the wares of every one of these brands. The next car might be testing the reliability, the ownership experience of that vehicle too. So whenever this one goes down the road, we'll be trying the next one. If I wanted simple and easy, I would buy a Honda or I would buy a Toyota. Then there wouldn't be much to talk about. We buy vehicles that are a little bit more controversial. It looks nice, it drives nice, has all the safety features, but unfortunately some of the durability and the reliability and the challenges we've had even with the dealer network, which we'll talk about in a second, brings the reputation to the forefront. A lot of people understand reputation goes a long ways. So when you hear from he said, she said, often that goes a lot further than a bunch of glossy magazines and articles that you see online. Vehicles like this generally haven't been doing all that well, and reliability isn't great, but ultimately it's the reputation that catches up. So a lot of people don't want to risk it, and they decide, you know what, I'm not going to buy one after all. Today's day and age, nobody wants to gamble with their money. They want something a little bit more surefire. And the idea of buying something that's riskier seems to be less appetizing for most buyers. It's very much a reputation of these modern day Mercedes-Benz that has people avoiding these vehicles altogether unless the prices are extremely right. Hence, it pushes prices down. And the next one has to do with maintenance costs. A lot of people have to expect, it's a Mercedes-Benz, it's a luxury vehicle, you would expect higher than average maintenance and service costs, and you would get them, absolutely, and I've confirmed that. Now, when we bought this vehicle slightly used, and a lot of people do, they get them late model, a certified pre-owned vehicle, quite often like we did, they'll often throw in a prepaid maintenance plan, and we got that for a few years. Of course, that usually means the A and B services. Mercedes-Benz has two alternating services. A is usually quite affordable, quite cheap. It's basically a few checkpoints and an oil change, and they do that annually every other year. And then there's a service B, which we just had to do, and that one we had to do on our dime because our service plan just ran out this year. And a lot of people get the reputation and understand the elevated costs of maintaining these vehicles, but I did a lot of these maintenance aspects myself at home because I'm done getting hosed by the dealer. And so what I ended up doing was I just duplicated. I understood what that maintenance B was all about, and they ended up quoting us about $1,200, almost $1,300 for the Service B maintenance plan for this vehicle just about a month ago. So instead of paying that $1,300 at the dealer, I decided to go ahead and do the service myself. And let's break this down. So this is what you're going to get for $1,300 or $1,200. First of all, this key fob, they'll replace the battery for you. That gets a new battery, you change that out. Tire rotation, I did that myself, so I got that on jack stands. It took me about an hour. I flipped it up and I did my tire rotation just to make sure that you get more even wear on your tires. Of course, I did a check with the mic. I checked the brake wear. I did an overall inspection. It also entails that you have to do an oil change, which I did. You have to pull this off, and I do a demonstration, but basically it's an oil change, filter which is buried under there. It's actually quite easy to do. And as the dealers do it, they usually suck the oil out the top right there. I did an inspection on coolant, changed the cabin air filter and the engine air filter, which is right in there. And I did all those aspects with the materials I bought, the filters, the oil. It all cost me about $250, and then my time in the shop. So basically I saved myself almost $1,000, probably $800 to $1,000 in labor costs, and they can plump that up however they want. That was all the proper oil used as per the manufacturer's recommendations. So I used everything either OEM, and I saved a pile of money. But most people don't buy a Mercedes-Benz because they want to wrench on their own vehicles, and that's ultimately the problem. They're so expensive to maintain, between $600 and $1,200 alternating either year. And of course, we don't even talk about when you get into changing tires. The tires are a little larger than most vehicles. Of course, the brakes, in this case, you get cross-drilled ventilated. They're going to be more money for the discs. The pads are going to be pricier. Look, it's a larger caliper there. Everything in this vehicle is going to be more money, not just for annual servicing, but also for repairs. When repairs hit you, it's going to be a significant amount of money, and that scares people. That's why prices drive down, and that's why these are wonderful. For the first 3 years, you get warranty, you get prepaid maintenance plans, and people are good. But after 3 to 4 years, people would rather just send them down the market and let somebody else deal with all the headaches and the squeaks and the rattles and the maintenance that's about to hit it. And another reason is the Mercedes market is a little bit more of a fickle market, as a lot of these luxury brands tend to be. They have buyers, well, quite often, that will never buy a used Mercedes-Benz. Although people that are buying Hondas and Toyotas are often willing to buy used because they know they get the miles out of them. They're not worried about how long they'll last. And many people will easily buy a used Toyota and not even think twice about it. But a lot of people will just never buy a used Mercedes. So you're dealing with a smaller, more niche group of buyers. A lot of people are looking at only new vehicles, and they would rather sign up on the dotted line to get their new Mercedes-Benz. So it's a tighter, smaller market. I mean, with all the growing incentives are the key attribute here. You look at a lot of these vehicles, sure, while they're cheaper, when you actually crunch the numbers, a lot of people say, you know what, I'll buy a brand new one with that 0 or 0.9% financing, better finance rates. I've got the prepaid maintenance plan. That takes that out of the equation. And instead of paying 60% of what the new one is, they're saving a bunch of money in other areas, and they've got the peace of mind. A lot of people simply do not want to buy an older used Mercedes-Benz. They just know all the other reasons for it: reliability, reputation, quality, parts replacements. All of those factors come into play, and a lot of people just wait for those incentives. You get great incentives. Mercedes-Benz is incentivizing purchases, leases, and there's always an opportunity to get a great deal brand new. And those buyers that are just more fickle, willing to buy something new, are always there waiting for that new product. Simply will not buy that used Mercedes-Benz. So while it's a smaller market, it's the incentives that are motivating to people to buy new and skip the used altogether. And of course, there's another huge reason why a lot of these cars are so cheap on the used market, is a very stiff competition. It's a shrinking diet industry. Of course, the luxury car segment, sales have been down. We know with the cost of living, it's been shrinking. Less and less people buying new or used luxury vehicles. Vehicles are simply too much money these days. The transition as well to EVs means a lot of that market of people that were well-heeled, that had the money, are now starting to buy vehicles like Tesla and move into the EV segments, whereas they're losing market share even further. Not just in the new car segment, but also in the used. We see a lot of the used vehicles, for example, Teslas, are driving off a cliff. So a lot of people are giving those a choice now. I mean, if you're looking at EVs, if you're looking at other luxury vehicles, Lexus has a great brand. A lot of people don't mind buying used Lexus vehicles. BMW's been getting better in recent years with their Turbo 4s and Turbo 6s. Audi, not really in the game, but Alfa and Maserati. There's a lot of different brands that are stealing market share that maybe weren't there before or didn't have a place at the table. Unfortunately, Mercedes-Benz is finding themselves having to pick for scraps and share a market share that's dwindling and shrinking every single day. So yes, competition is stiff, it's fierce, And Mercedes-Benz is struggling to sell both new and used vehicles these days. And the only way for them to dig themselves out of this hole is continue building and developing vehicles that are more compelling, more reliable, more long-lasting, and it certainly provides better value to the consumer. And that's why the new vehicles we find too expensive, the value is not quite there, and the used vehicles, while they do provide the value, our last 4.5 years of experience have proven a multitude of reasons why, in fact, we probably wouldn't buy another one. And with all of that said, be sure to check out there. 2025 offers up some great new reliable vehicles. If you just decide, you know what, I'm going to skip on the used Benz after this video, you're definitely going to find some great options there if you're looking for new. As well, check out one of the car roasts. New to the channel, you're going to love it. Great for a few laughs. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.